ride away on the little farm in Iowa. I'm going to ride away on the road that leads to yesterday.
Hey there, I'm author Sarah A. Chrisman.
I'm Gabriel Chrisman.
And today we're going to talk to you about the Iowa State Fair.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is a favorite of ours.
Mm-hmm.
So, Iowa has one of the biggest fairs in the nation. The Texas Fair is bigger. Everything's bigger in Texas.
Pretty much, yeah.
The northeastern states kind of cheat because a bunch of states go in together for one fair. And in my book, that's cheating.
Yeah.
But Iowa State Fair is one of the biggest. And it is a celebration of rural life. Mm-hmm. It really is. And that's part of what we love about it. It started in the 1850s. The fairground moved around for the first few years. It wasn't always in Des Moines.
To be fair, the capital was moving around too.
The capital was moving around too, yeah, to be fair.
Took a while to sort of settle into place.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And the intent of the Iowa State Fair was to boost agriculture, to really promote agriculture and promote what the American farmers could do. Now, one of the founding beliefs of the Iowa State Fair was the idea that agriculture is the foundation of heartland prosperity. Mm-hmm. That our country, and especially the Midwest, is built on agriculture.
And in the 1850s, that was absolutely true.
Right.
And absolutely indisputable.
Yeah.
And as time went on, this became more and more fraught and more of an issue and a debatable point.
Right.
But state fairs are still upholding this. State fairs are still one of the few sort of cultural elements in our society that are still sort of pushing this ideal.
Absolutely. And the other founding belief of the Iowa State Fair was the idea that culture and agriculture are inseparable, especially in the Midwest, especially in the heartland. That heartland culture is agriculture and vice versa. Agriculture is the culture of the heartland because it permeates everything in life here, and especially in the 19th century, because American frontier life was founded on this idea, this Jeffersonian ideal of
individual landowners who owned the land, who farmed the land, and then who, sold those products on.
Absolutely.
And formed communities that were based around supporting this whole way of life, this whole system. Mm-hmm. And it was the Midwest was really the realization of the Jeffersonian ideal.
Absolutely.
Writ large, extremely large, across land that Jefferson effectively was involved in purchasing.
Yes, it's very true. Through the Louisiana Purchase.
Exactly.
Jefferson was in charge of that, and he's the one who sent Captains Meriwether and Lewis, Captains Lewis and Clark. Meriwether Lewis, William Clark.
Yes.
Jefferson sent them west to explore the Louisiana Purchase, and that's where the American Midwest and American farmland started. Honestly.
So no accident, really.
No accident. No accident. And so coming back to the Iowa State Fair, these fairs, they hoped to boost rural pride because there's always been this phenomenon of the city looking down on the country, always. Mm-hmm. That's always been the case.
Well, no matter when through history you looked at it, the elites tended to live in the cities.
Even in Rome.
Even in Babylon.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. So there's always been this phenomenon of the city folks looking down their noses at the country folks. But one of the things that I think we should credit Jefferson for, the man had many faults, but he deserves to be recognized for his promotion of country life and his promotion of rural life.
And his promotion of this particular ideal of rural life that included culture, the life of the mind, philosophy, and all these other things, all rolled up in the pride of ownership and the pride of production.
Right, and especially the ownership of land and property. And the state fairs were meant, again, to show up all the best of the countryside and show the countryside as the ideal.
And also to create sort of a competition, a friendly competition, to also sort of hold up have everyone competing to do even better.
Right.
And to have this progression, which allowed for everyone to constantly be striving.
Right.
And not simply just stuck in a rut in perpetual sameness, which is what Jefferson sort of saw Europe as doing, and he wanted to have sort of an American version of this rural life.
Right.
Which involved this sort of competition and progression.
Right. And at first, the fair tried to lure city people to the country. It tried to convince people it tried to show people the best of country life, and it wanted to convince the city folks that the country was not just as good, but better than the city.
And in the 1850s, the 1860s, the 1870s, the 1880s, sort of the homestead era, they were succeeding. They were attracting people who were living in East Coast cities, and they were attracting them with the promise of ownership of your own land, control of your own destiny, the sort of this new promised land of the frontier where you could own, 160 acres and make your own little kingdom, basically, in Jefferson's ideal.
So in a way, now the modern state fair, in one of the biggest buildings, it has booths that are rented out by various companies to promote their products and show off the best of what their company can make. In some ways, the 19th century state fairs, the whole fair was a way of showing off and selling the American dream.
Their particular, again, sort of Jeffersonian version of the American dream.
Yeah, the whole state fair was there to sell America, to sell the American farm life to people as an ideal. And as Gabriel said, for a while it worked. But then as the land got claimed and there started being less and less land that people could get for free or for low cost.
And more of the land was getting accurately priced for what it was worth, so the only land that was really cheap was land that was really hard to farm.
Right. Then it started to be a much harder sell. And by the turn of the 20th century, the focus of these state fairs shifted from trying to lure the city folks to the country to just trying to keep the young folks in the country, to just preventing what we would now call the brain drain. And this is still a problem. There's still a big problem with the best and the brightest of young folks from the country moving off to cities.
Well, the percentages, they tell the tale. The amount of the country that was living in the city versus the country has been shifting in favor of the city basically ever since the 1860s, 1870s.
Yeah.
And so basically you've had more and more percentage of the country living in the city than in the country. The 1920s was where the tipping point was, when it moved to being more than 50% of Americans lived in urban areas. And now I think we're something close to 80%. And so rural populations have really been shrinking and shifting over this entire 150-year period.
Yeah. And it's interesting that this tension between the city and the country existed in the greater scheme of the fairs, but then it started to infiltrate the fairs because you started to, around the turn of they were always there to a certain extent.
Especially in the 1890s.
Especially in the 1890s, you get these very cityfied amusements in the fair. You get the carnival rides, you get the barker shows, you get the games of chance, which are always rigged.
Things that had been in circuses.
Yeah.
And now sort of expanded into the state fairs as well.
And this idea of the carnival coming to the countryside was something a lot of people saw as pretty sinister because the state fair was meant to be a celebration of the rural, and it was getting invaded by the city that it was supposed to be a reaction against. And so in the late 19th and early 20th century, through the Depression, basically, there were a lot of objections to the carnival sideshows, the rigged games of chance, the burlesque shows that, let's face it, they were pretty baudy. They were pretty salacious. There were objections to these not because they were salacious or the games were rigged, which they were. And let's be honest, farmers they very much understand salacious things because the farm life is all about breeding. It's not like farmers are in ignorance of sex. But they objected to these shows not because they were salacious, not because the games were rigged. They objected to them because they were city entertainments that were invading their country life.
And they were especially invading what was supposed to be the biggest celebration of that.
Exactly.
And was supposed to be focused on that and selling that to everyone else.
Right. And I'll tell you, it's funny. Funny thing I saw at a county fair here in Iowa was one of the judges judging rabbits, and some of the rabbits had been mislabeled by their very young owners. I mean, these are kids competing with their rabbits. These are under 10 kids, and the judge is very sternly telling them, you have to give the right sex of the rabbit. Here is how you find the penis on a boy. Now, telling this to little kids kind of opened my eyes. I was a bit shocked, but that's how farm life is.
Exactly.
You gotta know.
You can't gloss over it
You
either.
can't gloss over it.
If you get it wrong with which rabbits you put in which cage,
then they get disqualified.
well, but also if you do that at home,
It's true.
you pretty quickly have either a problem on your hands or
Right. It's
Yes.
true. It's true. So yeah, these weren't prudish judgments. They were fear of the city coming to the country, is what they were. And the part of this celebration of country life is that the fair was originally a harvest fair. The Iowa State Fair was originally held at harvest time.
in October.
In October. But then as the school schedule started to shift, then they still wanted families to bring their children to the fair. And so they started shifting the fair earlier and earlier, and now it's in mid-August, which is a very hot time to have a fair, I must admit. And a lot of the vegetables are probably grown in greenhouses these days because they can't get to fair sizes that early in the year, a lot of them, which is too bad because it does limit who can enter things, which is a shame. But that aside, the state fair is still a wonderful, wonderful celebration of the rural. And I grew up in Washington State, where the big fair is the Puyallup Fair. And the Puyallup Fair was always about the rides. And I remember when I was very young seeing some animals there, but as I got a little older, there would be fewer and fewer animals and more big, expensive rides until finally, the last time I was at the Puyallup Fair, it was all about the rides. Very few animals. The Iowa State Fair is still very focused on the animals. Very focused on the animals, which I love about it.
And a huge amount of the footprint of the fair is taken up with these vast buildings to house the various classes of animals that are competing.
Absolutely. So it really is still a celebration of the rural. My favorite animals at the fair, I must admit, are the celebrity animals that come. I love the Budweiser Clydesdales. I don't even drink beer, but those Clydesdales are so awesome. I basically feel about the Budweiser Clydesdales the way a lot of other people feel about celebrities. You know, some people would say if they heard that, I don't know, Brad Pitt was coming to town, they'd be falling over themselves. Oh, it's Brad Pitt! Now, admittedly, I would like to see Brad Pitt. Honestly, I would. But what's another celebrity I don't care much for?
Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift. Yeah, she's okay. She's okay, but I wouldn't run across town to see her. But the Clydesdales, I get all gushy when I hear that the Budweiser Clydesdales are on the premises. I'm like, where? Because they are so impressive, especially to see them in person. I mean, they're really cool to see on screen, but when you see them in person, you really really understand how powerful these animals are.
You also see how pampered they are because they have an entire team just working to make sure they are constantly primped and presentable in every respect.
Yes, they do. They have a whole retinue.
And everything else.
Yes, absolutely.
These are the most pampered horses you can imagine.
Absolutely.
These are like giant My Little Ponies.
Yes, they are. And they deserve it. They deserve it. They are awesome, awesome horses. Mm-hmm. And even the other horses who are not the Budweiser Clydesdales are still really impressive. I loved seeing the cowboy shooting competition at the Iowa State Fair. That was so cool. So what the cowboy shooting competition is there is an obstacle course set up in the horse arena, and they have balloons set up
on posts.
And the riders have first pistols and then rifles that are loaded with black powder. So no bullets, but just black powder. And the sparks from the black powder, if they shoot right and get close enough, are enough to pop the balloons.
And then the balloons are in two different colors, so when they're going one direction across the arena, they have to shoot just ones of one color, and when they're going back the other direction, they have to shoot the other color. So it gets more and more complicated, then the route gets more and more complicated as the level goes up. But it is incredible to watch.
Yeah, and so they're going through this obstacle course at full gallop, shooting these balloons, and they get judged on how fast they are, if they touched anything they shouldn't or knocked over anything they shouldn't have.
Their accuracy.
And how many balloons they got. And it is just amazing to watch those riders because there's so much involved with what they have to do. And especially they have to just train their horses to begin with to deal with loud noises because horses don't like loud noises. And so that's the first level of training, and then there's all the obstacle course to deal with. It is incredibly impressive. I just loved the cowboy shooting competition. Some of the other highlights, we always love the poultry at the fair because we grow poultry ourselves. We have turkeys and chickens and meat pigeons. Actually, the Iowa State Fair was where I saw my first meat pigeon.
Even though they don't have big quantities of them any year.
Right.
I mean, that mostly is reserved for a pigeon show that happens in December.
Right. And they don't even always have them at all.
No.
But the first year I went to the Iowa State Fair, I saw a meat pigeon, and I was so impressed by this giant pigeon that I just had to have some of my own. And I was hooked. And
see, the sales method worked. It showed you the best of agriculture, and you had to be a part of it.
Absolutely.
It worked.
It did. It sold me on meat pigeons. It worked, yeah. But of course, the biggest category at the Iowa State Fair, pigs.
Yes.
Iowa has more pigs than people. It's something like 7 times more pigs than people.
I think so, yeah. And
so the pigs are a really big deal at the Iowa State Fair. And the hog barn is huge. And the people who compete actually have to run their pigs through their paces just like in a dog show. So the pigs have to go through these special trotting exercises and everything else, which... It's impressive they can actually train pigs to do that.
Pigs are smart.
Pigs are very smart. Yeah. And then there are the displays that are really fun. There's a butter cow every year that is a sculpture of a cow made out of butter.
Which is a survival straight from the 1890s state fairs. You know, this is exactly the sort of boosterism that was common. It was everywhere in the 1890s, and this is one of the few survivals that's continued on.
Right, and so originally the butter cow was a promotion for the butter industry. It was a promotion for selling butter. And Iowa doesn't produce that much butter anymore, but they still they still have a butter cow at the state fair. It's just become tradition by this point. And they make other statues out of butter to go with it.
They're a different theme every year.
Because after a while, you've seen one butter cow, you've seen them all kind of, but Well, no, not really.
They're very realistic.
They're very realistic.
But the differences are probably very subtle and mostly perceptible only to cattle breeders.
And to sculptors.
Yes.
But it just adds excitement to have more, more variation, more variety. And then there's a lot of food. And actually the food helps pay for the fair because the food vendors,
they pay a substantial percentage just to have a booth there.
Right. And those substantial percentages are a lot of how the fair pays for itself.
And the tradition of serving good food and impressive food at these fairs is part of that agricultural boosterism of bounty. This was a harvest festival originally. This was selling people on, here's how well you can eat if you, grow this sort of food.
Right.
And so the sort of innovations that they've put in of everything on a stick.
Yeah. My favorite of those is actually a freebie because every year they hand out free hard-boiled eggs on sticks.
And that is still done by the Egg Commission.
It's still done by the Egg Commission. And there's something special about those. I make hard-boiled eggs myself. We raise our own chickens, we grow our own eggs, so our eggs are, perfect, homegrown. And yet there's something special.
There's something special about the State Fair eggs on a stick.
There is. There is. It's just the whole...
And it's not the fact that they were being served up by a U.S. senator last time we went.
That was fun. He's the oldest senator.
Yes.
The oldest sitting senator. Sweet guy. Sweet old guy. But yeah, there's just something so charming about eggs on sticks. I just love them. For free.
I mean, again, it's part of the whole agricultural promise of bounty.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Iowa State Fair represents so much of what America is all about. The celebration of the countryside, the celebration of bounty, the celebration of harvest, all the friendly people.
And to me, it's a little sad that this incredible vision of America is definitely no longer the most popular sort of example of what America is all about. But this was a vision.
And I'm glad we still have a celebration of that. And again, comparing this to the Puyallup Fair back in Washington, especially as I got a little older, the Puyallup Fair just seemed more and more like a celebration of really tawdry commercialism. It really did. Whereas the Iowa State Fair is still a celebration of rural bounty and the American dream.
And that shows you Iowa is still a state that is focused on that.
Right.
And so many other states have gone to simply concentrating on their cities.
Right.
But Iowa is still heavily focused on rural living.
That's part of why we love the State Fair, and it's part of why we love Iowa. So... that's a good note to end on. Why we love the State Fair is why we love Iowa.
Pretty much.
Celebration of rural life and true Americanism. So, on that note, we hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a nice thumbs up, and remember to tell your friends about my books. Happy reading!
I'll hide away way down in